Presentation development. Here's an overview of where we're going. In Act 1, we'll discuss process and approach. In Act 2, organization and outlining. In Act 3, we'll discuss delivery considerations. Preview of Act 1. How do I approach this? What is the presentational speaking process? How do I narrow a topic and develop a thesis statement? How do I then support my thesis statement? What is audience-centered presentational speaking? Audience-centered presentational speaking is when a speaker adapts to the audience at every stage of the presentational speaking process. What is the presentational speaking process? Don't forget to adapt to your audience at every single step of this presentational speaking process. So when you select and narrow your topic, consider your audience. When you identify your purpose, consider your audience. When you develop a central idea, consider your audience. When you generate main ideas, consider your audience. In gathering supporting material, consider your audience. In organizing your presentation, think about your audience, put yourself in their shoes. In rehearsing your presentation, imagine your audience. And in delivering your presentation, don't forget to consider your audience. Identify your purpose. There are three kinds of purposes to understand. You can speak to inform, persuade, and entertain. A specific purpose is a concise statement of what listeners should understand, believe, feel, or be able to do by the time the speaker finishes the presentation. So for an informative purpose statement, you might write, I want my audience to understand blank. Your purpose is to teach, analyze, describe, compare and contrast, and or illustrate a topic. For a persuasive purpose statement, you'll write, I want my audience to believe blank. Your purpose is to create, modify, or change an attitude, belief, or behavior. Develop the central idea. In an informative presentation, the central idea is considered a thesis or initial preview statement. It's what you want your audience to understand and remember. In the persuasive presentation, the central idea is considered a propositional statement. It's what you want your audience to believe and or do. How do I narrow a topic and develop a thesis or initial preview statement? First, identify a topic that interests you. Informative presentations focus on objects, people, events, and ideas. An example of an object speech might be the Roman Colosseum. An example of a people speech might be Maya Angelou. An example of an event speech might be the attack on Pearl Harbor. An example of an ideas speech might be airline accidents. Broad topic, airline accidents. Possible subtopics, causes, outcomes, and types of accidents. So be sure to take your big topic and break it up into as many small topics as you can. Break it up as many times as it takes to get a speech that fits into the parameters of your assignment. New topic, types of airline accidents. Fires, ditchings, runway collisions, mid-air collisions, equipment malfunctions. So I chose equipment malfunctions. There are three specific equipment malfunctions for which I found examples. Fuselage cracks, specifically with United 223, a rudder malfunction, specifically with US Air 557, a hydraulic system malfunction, specifically with United 321. So now I'm ready to write my thesis or initial preview statement. Three types of equipment malfunctions that have contributed to airline disasters include fuselage cracks, rudder malfunctions, and hydraulic failure. How do I support my initial preview or thesis statement? First, make sure you define terms and concepts. What is, for example, fuselage, rudder, or hydraulic? Don't assume your audience knows these things. Make sure that you define those things. Be sure to define everything in your thesis statement, especially things that audience members are going to need help to understand. Describe or illustrate ideas. What does an equipment malfunction look and sound like? Provide explanations. How and why do fuselage cracks occur? Offer statistics and expert opinion. How many of these cracks have occurred? What do the experts say? So whatever your initial preview statement or thesis may be sure to describe terms and concepts, describe or illustrate ideas, provide explanations, and offer statistics and expert opinion. So here's where we went in Act 1. We talked about what the audience-centered presentational speaking model was, how the presentational speaking process worked, how to narrow a topic and develop a thesis statement, and how to support my thesis statement or initial preview statement, and how to support a thesis statement or initial preview statement.